Activities can help our kids learn new skills in music, art, or sports. However, there can be a lot of pressure with activities, not only for children, but for parents too. Today we're going to talk about how to balance the positives and the negatives of kids' activities. Here to join me, we have a great panel. Laura Miley, she's a Jefferson High School counselor. Dr. Sam Schimmelfinnig, he's a pediatrician with Avera Pediatrics. Brianna Nelson, who's a Patrick Henry Middle School counselor. And Dr. David Ermer, who is with Avera Behavioral Health as a psychiatrist. Thank you all for being here with me today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So Laura, let's start with you. Let's talk about some of the benefits of kids' activities before we get into some of the tougher topics. What are those?
Well, gosh, there's so many to get involved in, right? And yes, tons of benefits. A hot topic is kids being on screens and kind of a sedentary lifestyle. And so getting involved in activities just helps them put away the screens. They get to move their bodies, things like that. So I think that's great. And along that, they're learning a new skill, oftentimes, making connections in their brain. They are, there's a correlation between grades and activities. Kids who are involved in activities tend to get better grades. And so I know it's something at the high school level we encourage kids to find something. It doesn't have to be a sport. Maybe it's just even a club. I think sometimes the things you learn from getting involved, like the responsibility, time management, just that grit, perseverance, working with others, transfers to the classroom, all those skills too. And so I think there's strong relationship there, why kids do get better grades when they're involved in activities. So lots of good benefits.
You highlighted some great ones. Dr. Sam, as a pediatrician, what do you want to add?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the other part of it is, especially from a sports standpoint, is just the physical activity that they get and the health benefits they get from physical activity. But it's also the social aspect of doing sports. You're part of a team. You're learning how to interact with other people, how to win gracefully, how to lose gracefully, all things that are very, very helpful life skills that you can take going forward.
Yeah, there's a lot you get out of it. So it feels like anymore, almost as soon as you have your babies, you're being asked to participate in different activities. So Brianna, what are some age milestones that parents should consider when getting kids involved?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you kind of just want to start small and slow when your kids are younger. So maybe around kindergarten time, you can start involving them in activities. Maybe a little bit before that, just doing like the toddler parent classes that you guys do together. But definitely starting to sample things just so that kids know a variety of different things that they could participate in and be in. Again, just kind of starting slow because you have a lot to choose from. So you want to kind of just dabble in a little bit before they kind of realize what their true passion is, and then explore further into that.
Dr. Ermer, what do you want to add to some of those age milestones?
Well, I agree 100%. I do think every kid's different too. There may be some kids you may want to wait longer, and some kids can get started earlier, but usually that 6-year age, you start organized activities, but it's not about competition, winning, losing. It's about the social aspect, learning skills, being active, learning rules, and just, it's not about the competition. It's not till kids are older where they recommend a lot of the competitive kind of sports.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point. So it's important to think about kind of the mix of activities, and it seems like anymore, as soon as my kids got a little bit older, they almost had to specialize right away. So Dr. Sam, what is your advice as far as mix of activities as parents are choosing?
Yeah, especially at younger ages, a mix is going to be much more helpful. I think there's a common misconception that to be a great basketball player, you have to start dribbling a basketball when you're 2 or 3 years old. And it really doesn't hold true when you look at the literature. Great athletes are made by doing a lot of different things at a younger age. But specialization is definitely important, especially if you want to be a professional basketball player. Eventually you will have to specialize, and it's all about timing. And so the adolescent years is a good time if you're really into a sport or an activity or an instrument where you want to dedicate more dedicated time to it. When you're a little bit older is better. We worry a little bit more about pushing kids too hard. If they play a sport, basketball for example, again, too much too young, they often get burnt out and they get tired of it, and then that carries over that they don't want to do any other sports, which later on in life has all sorts of health implications from not being physically active. So again, our goal is to nurture this activity, which will hopefully become a lifelong activity as they get older and not push too hard when they're younger.
And Laura, how about that mix? What other advice do you have?
Yeah, I mean, I just think, in the past decades, activities have changed, where you can do outside of a season, maybe you're doing individual training and things like that. So the commitment is so much more, like Dr. Sam was talking about. I think too, so considering what is the time commitment, whatever age a kid is getting involved in, what time commitment, money, a lot of things, a lot of activities can be financially straining on families, so that's something to really consider. And travel, sometimes you're traveling, and so I know I'll hear this is personal to my family too. Sometimes we have to divide and conquer, mom's going with one child to one city, or dad's staying with someone else, and so that can just put strain too on just the scheduling for families and stuff. It's a lot to take, so just keeping all those things in mind and having a good balance. I think that's the thing that I would say when families and kids are looking at getting involved, is just making sure there's a really good balance in all those aspects.
And Dr. Ermer, do kids learn as much, from things that they maybe don't like being involved in as they do from things they do enjoy?
Oh, sure. I do think, obviously in school, we all had classes we enjoyed more than others. I do think it's worth, a lot of parents say if you're going to try something to see if you like it, you got to stick the season out and just, and then maybe not continue if you don't like it. And really, as like we were mentioning earlier, as you get older, you're going to probably select more activities you want to do. But there's value in that sort of sticking things out, and there's the social piece, and frankly, the activity, that being active. I mean, find ways to be active. And some kids, every kid's different. Some kids' parents have to rein them in. No, you're not going to do your 12th activity, or you got to pick 3. And other kids, maybe a little bit less motivated, parents say, hey, you got to pick one, maybe one kind of sport activity and one sort of music or arts kind of activity. And some kids you have to push, and you just have to read your kids.
Yeah, that's great advice. So maybe as you're trying new things, pick things that are maybe shorter duration so that they learn how to stick it out, or once they commit to a season, at least do that season.
Within reason, yeah, if it's miserable, I suppose. But I do, a lot of parents say, look, if you sign up, you need to finish. And part of it's just teaching that you finish what you started.
Yeah.
So can kids be really too involved nowadays? Brianna, what do you have advice for parents there?
Yep, I think, again, it's a good, when they're younger, to have that sampling, but then sometimes I have worked with kids that, it's so hard for them to choose what to maybe drop, what activity to drop, because their schedules are just so packed. And we do have a lot of students at my school in particular that are involved in musical stuff, in athletics, and then they have their schoolwork, so then they're just almost the activities that are supposed to bring them joy and just be fun and learning some of those soft skills almost become too much of a job to them, where it's not enjoyable as much anymore, and then they're just feeling stressed, and that's when the anxiety comes up too. Another aspect too, I think, is thinking as a parent, when thinking about kids that are in so many activities, kind of what Laura was saying, if you're as a parent feeling stressed out about oh, I have to get my kid here and then this one here and then I have to think about supper, if you're feeling that stress and that almost fatigue on yourself, your kids are also feeling that. And to a point too, as an adult, then I feel when I'm overscheduled, my resiliency is a little low, so my fuse is shorter, and then that's going to impact my kids as well. They're gonna not have as much fun in activities or just in general and be more stressed out.
Yeah, parents really do have to be dedicated to doing it all too. Dr. Ermer, anything to add?
Oh, I agree. I remember riding to a club soccer game in Des Moines, and are you still enjoying yourself? It's good. I do think, everybody's stressed. The joke is if one child's doing a club sport, probably the whole family is, because it does take time away. And you just have to, as a family, you just have to balance things out. And I think, there's no one answer for every family. I think you just have to have those discussions and look for burnout. The grades dropping, they're anxious, they're stressed out, they're complaining, I don't want to go to practice anymore. That might be signs they're getting stressed out or overburdened with their activities.
And Dr. Sam, you work a lot with our student athletes at Avera as well, and especially kids who are pretty involved and might do traveling sports and things like that. Do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, I would echo everything. I mean, to me, it's all about balance, making sure that from the young student athlete standpoint, are they getting what they need? Are they getting the benefit of the activity? Are they getting what they need to recover? Do they have time to be a kid and to do normal things, or are you gone all the time? And school is sort of the secondary option because the sport is more important than their actual education. So it's all about balance. I think unfortunately social media puts a lot of pressure on parents. As a parent, I can say that, you see what everybody else is doing and oh my gosh, I must be doing something wrong because my kids aren't in 5 different things. But like Dr. Ermer said, you kind of have to do you have to find balance and do what works best for your family.
And being able to pivot, like depending on what season you're in your life, Brianna, you work with middle school kids, I work with high school kids, but finding that balance in middle school, but then you come to high school and you might have to refigure that out because the demands of a high school student start to look different. Now all of a sudden they can get a part-time job. And so in addition to their activities and sports and practices, now they have to, fit into that on that plate, in that piece of pie, like their work schedule, classes and academics, so as they become juniors and seniors, they can take AP classes or dual credit college classes, and so the academic pressures become more too. And so what season of life are you in, and is it okay to say no to things? I think that's another thing, like parents giving their kids permission, or maybe even teaching their kids how to say no, that this isn't the right time for me to.
It's hard enough for adults to
I
say
know,
no
it's hard
sometimes.
enough for us too, so yeah.
Echoing what you said, Dr. Sam, about there's this sort of guilt you have. There's so much out there about what everybody's doing. I think just the sports industry alone is like a $15 to $30 billion industry, and I think a lot of these people prey on parents' insecurities. Oh, if you're not doing this, you're not doing the best for your child. And I think it's okay to relook at that and say, look, wait a second, is this, what are we doing here? And I think we're all susceptible to that guilt as a parent. I'm not doing enough.
Yeah, and I think that's such good advice. It's kind of like getting beyond, your own wants and looking at your kids and what their needs are. Like I have 2 sons who definitely need some home time, and they are a little bit homebodies, and so I just know they can only handle maybe one activity, and that's probably going to be enough. So Laura, I'm going to come back to you. Like, what is that importance of downtime to kids? What does that do to them to have that space? Because I think, to your point, parents are under pressure and they feel like they've got to keep their kids really busy.
Yeah. Rest and balance, and I mean, how important the studies of sleep show, right? How important just adolescents getting the sleep they need. And so, yeah, allowing them that downtime. I think that, with the figuring out your schedule and balancing and knowing, again, kind of going back to what we said, like when are you allowed to say, like, okay, I have to step back and not do this in my life because I'm getting burned out. Maybe my performance is starting to lack in the classroom, things like that. So being able to kind of really observe, and parents being able to recognize those things and have that conversation with their kids, like, hey, I don't see you're getting the rest and that downtime. Let's reevaluate some things, but just it keeps you healthy. You have to have that rest to stay healthy and balanced.
And Dr. Sam, from a pediatrician standpoint, how does that rest help kids, especially from a behavioral health?
Yeah, I mean, we need, for just from a mental standpoint, and burnout is what we'll typically call it when you're feeling overwhelmed, that lack of joy from something you used to enjoy a lot. And rest is how the brain resets, how the body resets. And so you have a mental side of it. There's also a physical side, and from a straight up athlete standpoint, an athlete who is not giving themselves time to rest and recover gets tired, and then they get hurt, and then they get things like stress fractures, and all that comes from not having rest, from doing too much, from pushing too hard, and not giving your body time to recover. And it's hard, especially with somebody who's really driven. They want to keep doing it. They have this drive to succeed, and sometimes reeling them in of like, it's okay to take a day off and lay on the couch and let your body recover. It's okay. It's not going to hurt you in the long run. It's actually going to help you in the long run. But that's a tough sell sometimes.
It is. So I think we think about burnout a lot of times in adults, but Dr. Ermer, what does that look like in children, burnout, even in young children?
Just not seeming to enjoy themselves. Sleep problems, anxiety, physical complaints, my stomach hurts, not wanting to go to their activity, and just not seeming like themselves. And And I do, that free time, even beyond sleep, just creative free time is so important for kids to, social skills and self-directed play. I always look at it like snow days. It's like these are the days where kids have nothing scheduled, and it's so much joy to drive to work on a snow day and see kids out there making snow forts or something like that. Maybe not today because it's cold, but that's kind of showing, give them some free time. They can have a lot of fun, and they learn to cooperate and collaborate, and it's okay to have, it's good to have free time, actually.
I actually saw once something that said like it's okay for kids to like allow them to be bored, and where the adults in their life aren't always trying to find like, let's go do this, and where it just encourages that imagination, that creativity, that child's play that
Absolutely.
Helps them develop. So
I mean, you build forts, you build a ramp or something. You probably do dangerous things with your bike, but you're doing things.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Brianna?
Just again, prioritizing as a parent to like rest, but then also play, and that kind of bites into what Dr. Irmer said too. It just like, I know Lynn Lyons, I'm a huge fan of her work, and she talks about anxiety a lot, and she's a specialist in anxiety, and she said one of the antidotes to anxiety is like goofiness and like play, so that's just having that creative time or that time to, as an adult, be goofy with your kids and just have that like play and unstructured time is gonna make everything seem okay. Like we don't have to be rushing anything. We're just gonna kind of enjoy each other in life.
That's great. Yeah, and Dr. Sam, how should that mix of activities and things, how should that grow with kids and change over time? Like Laura was talking about, obviously high school, you've got different demands.
Yeah. And I would say it depends on the kid. What are their interests, and it depends on the stage of life I think that they're in, and what they can reasonably handle. I think expectations is always an important consideration as well. Of what is the goal of this activity? Is it just because it's something you enjoy, or is this something is this an avenue to a college scholarship someday if you're at that level? So a little bit of the expectations, especially for younger kids. I feel like that's probably where as parents we need to be a little careful of putting pressure on our kids, because we want to see our kids succeed. That's normal for parents, but we also don't want to pressure them into feeling like you have to succeed in this. That's why I'm putting you in this, is because I want you to be a great tennis player, but letting them find their own way.
Yeah, your kid might be the next great artist, but if they're playing soccer all the time, they never get to pick up that paintbrush. You might never know.
Yep.
And the majority of kids, it's not going to turn into something beyond just being involved at their local level, And so, exposure and just having kids, I know at Jefferson, kids just want to be involved in something, and so they're not necessarily looking to be a college athlete. Some are, but generally speaking, there's not there's a low percentage that's going to turn out for. So, and that's okay. But just that involvement and that just the skills you learn in life, being involved, and having it end at that local level is okay.
And if they're too much into a sport and only that one sport, and then if it's over, like if they then go to college and don't pursue anything in college, then it's kind of almost like an identity crisis. Like I don't know how else to like have fun or experience joy because I've only ever done this sport. Like who am I outside of that?
I think Dr. Sam alluded to the fact that we got to be careful we don't put our wants and wishes on our kids. We might have really loved, baseball and gone far, but maybe our child likes the cello. Encourage it if that's what they want to do, even though that wouldn't be our first choice as a parent.
Well, you all have had great advice today. I'm going to give you just a minute to give parents some take-home thoughts that you might not have covered. Laura, I'll start with you.
Yeah, just, we did cover this, but just going back to consistent communication with your kid and just kind of bringing up just that balance, time management, helping them, giving them permission to ask for help and showing them what it looks like to maybe back off of something.
Very good. Dr. Sam?
Yeah, I think especially with starting with younger kids, my biggest goal for parents is to remember that whatever their activity is, it's supposed to be fun. And remembering that, the competitiveness can come later if they really like it, but the goal right now is fun and encourage those activities and be willing to try something that's maybe outside our comfort zone as a parent. But just because we've never played tennis, maybe our kids would love tennis and we can all learn about it together.
That's great. Anna?
I think my biggest advice would just be, especially at the middle school level, like trying to figure out maybe what are my top priorities, because I think I had like my 6th graders come in and maybe they're in band, chorus, and orchestra and do a sport, and then I'd hope by like 7th grade maybe they're dropping one thing, and maybe by 8th grade another thing, just so that when they get to high school, they can fit, you know, their deep passions into their schedule, but then also have time for that rest and that play. So middle school is kind of that transformative time of like, okay, what are my true priorities and the activities that I want to continue and focus in on.
And there's some really fun classes that they can take,
Yes.
you know, even in high school, and things like welding and car maintenance and some of those really different things that aren't just sitting in a classroom.
I agree with everything said so far. I really think that balance is important. Activities are great. We want kids to be active, but we also want some free time and downtime. I think any adult would tell you they value their free time and downtime also. And I think kids are the same. And just every kid's different. Just talk to your kids, read their cues, and find that balance.
Well, thank you all for joining today, and thank you for this important advice for our parents. You can find more information at our website.